Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radha Radha Nata, Radha Radha Nata, Radhe. Jai Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahangsa Parivrajacharya Stadhisishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON's founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Grantharaj Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki. Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Ki. Sri Giri Govardhan Ki. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki. Sankirtan Yagya Ki. Gopremanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Oops. Does anyone by any chance remember what was the last verse we read? No, does anyone remember? Do you remember? What was the kakoi steak? Okay, anyway, I got roughly. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya, Jai Nityananda, Jai Advaita Chandra, Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
239.
Was the last one. Oh, okay. Devotees, Hare Krishna. We are reading Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, and we're reading from Madhya Lila chapter 16, entitled The Lord's Attempt to Go to Vrindavan. And today we are going to start from, anyway, we're going to start from verse 239. I think we're a little further on than that, but anyway, it's okay. So we'll start with verse 239. Antare nishtakara bahye loka vyavahara achirat Krishna tomaya karibe udhara. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu continued, within your heart you should keep yourself very faithful, but externally you may behave like an ordinary man. Thus, Krishna will soon be very pleased and deliver you from the clutches of Maya. And this is Lord Chaitanya instructing Raghunath Das, who, you may recall, just wanted to just leave everything, his family, his parents, and his wife, and his money. They're extremely wealthy people, and just join Lord Chaitanya and just sort of throw everything, like all those things out. But Lord Chaitanya is advising him, don't be rash. Vrindavana deki yabe asiba nilchale tabe tumi amapasha asiha kona chale. You may see me at Nilachala Jagannath Puri when I return after visiting Vrindavan. By that time, you can think of some trick to escape. Actually, yeah, we read this last week, but it's okay. Se chala se kale Krishna, spurabe tomare, Krishna kripa yanre tare, kera kite pare. Whatever kind of means you'll have to use at that time will be revealed by Krishna. If one has Krishna's mercy, no one can check him. I remember reading this last week. So, but that's fine. Etakahi Mahaprabhu Tanre Vidya Dila Garayasi Mahaprabhur Shiksha Acharila. In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to Raghunath Das, who returned home and did exactly what the Lord told him. Vaya Vairagya Vatulata Sakala Chadiya Yata Yogya Karya Kare Anasaktahana. After returning home, Raghunath Das gave up all craziness and external pseudo-renunciation and engaged in his household duties without attachment. Dekitanra Pitamata Badasuka Paila Tanhara Avarana Kitchu Shitila Haila. When Raghunath Das's father and mother saw that their son was acting like a householder, they became very happy. Because of this, they slackened their guard. Ihan Prabhu Ekatrakari Sababhaktagana Advaita Nityanandadi Yata Bhaktajana Sabha Ilanganakari Kahena Gosani Sabe Agya Deha Ami Nila Chali Yai. Meanwhile at Shantipur, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu assembled all his devotees, headed by Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu, embraced them all, and asked their permission to return to Jagannath Puri. Sabara Sahita Ihan Ama Haila Milana Evarsha Niladri Keha Nakariha Gamana. Because he had met them all at Shantipur, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu requested all the devotees not to go to Jagannath Puri that year. I remember reading that verse. 248. Tahan haite avashya ame vrindavana yaba sabe agya dehatabe niravigne asiba. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I shall certainly go to Vrindavan from Jagannath Puri. If all of you give me permission, I shall return here again without difficulty. Matara charane dari bahu vinaya karila Vrindavana yaite tanra agya laila. Clasping the feet of his mother, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very humbly requested her permission. Thus she gave him leave to go to Vrindavan. Tabe Navadvipe Tanre Dila Paatana Niladri Chalila Sange Bhaktagan Alana. Srimati Sachi Devi was sent back to Navadvip, and the Lord and his devotees started for Jagannath Puri, Niladri. So his mother has given him permission. She gave him leave to go to Vrindavan. She's given him permission to go to Vrindavan later, because not very long after we'll encounter verses where some discussion is happening, where Lord Chaitanya, there's a plan made for going maybe the next year or after some number of months. Se Saba Lokapate Karina Sevana Suke Nilachala Aila Shachira Nandana. The devotees who accompanied Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rendered all kinds of service on the way to Nilachala, Jagannath Puri. Thus, in great happiness, the Lord returned. Prabhu Asi Jagannatha Darashana Kaila Mahaprabhu Aila Grame Kolahala Haila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived in Jagannath Puri, he visited the temple of the Lord. News then spread all over the city that he had returned, because he was a well-known person in Jagannath Puri. Anandita Bhaktagana Asya Milila Prema Alingana Prabhu Sabare Karila. All the devotees then came and met the Lord with great happiness. The Lord embraced each of them in great ecstatic love. Kashi Mishra Ramananda Prajumna Sarvabhauma Vaninatha Shika Adi Yata Bhaktagana. Kashi Mishra, Ramananda Roy, Pradyumna, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Vaninath Roy, Shiki Mahiti, and all the other devotees met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gadadhara Pandita Asi, Prabhure Milila, Sabara Agrete Prabhu, Kahite Lagila. Gadadhar Pandit also came and met the Lord. Then, before all the devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to speak. Vrindavana Yaba Ami, Goda Desha Dia, Nija Matar Gangara Charana Dekiya. It was my decision to go to Vrindavan through Bengal in order to see my mother and the river Ganges. Etamate Karikailun Godere Gamana Sahasreka Sangehaila Nija Bhaktagana. Thus I went to Bengal, but thousands of devotees began to follow me. Laksha Laksha Loka Aise Kautuka Dekite Lokera Sangate Pata Na Pari Chalite. Many hundreds of thousands of people came to see me out of curiosity, and due to such a large crowd, I could not travel very freely on the road. Yata Rahi Tatagara Prachira Hayachurna Yata Netra Pade Tata Loka Deki Purna. Indeed, the crowd was so large that the house and the boundary walls of the house where I stayed were destroyed. You remember that? Yeah. And wherever I looked, I could see only large crowds. Kashte Shristye Karigalan Ramakeli Grama Amaratani Ailarupa Sanatana Nama. With great difficulty I went to the town of Ramakeli, where I met two brothers named Rupa and Sanatan. Named Rupa and Sanatan because Lord Chaitanya just gave them the names there. Dui Bai Bhaktaraja Krishna Kripa Patra Vyavahare Raji Mantri Haya Raja Patra. These two brothers are great devotees and suitable recipients of Krishna's mercy, but in their ordinary dealings, they're government officials, ministers to the king. Vidyabhakti Buddhi Bale Parama Pravina Tabu Apanake Mane Trinahaita Hina. Srila Rupa and Sanatan are very much experienced in education, devotional service, intelligence, and strength. Yet they think themselves inferior to straw in the street. Tanradanya Deki Shuni Pashana Vidare Amitushta Hanatabe Kahilun Donhare Utamahana Hinakare Manaha Apanare Achire Karibe Krishna Tomara Udare. Indeed, the humility of these two brothers could even melt stone. Because I was very pleased with their behavior, I told them, although you're both very much exalted, you consider yourselves inferior. And because of this, Krishna will very soon deliver you. Yes, the importance of humility. So here's a purport by Srila Prabhupada. Such are the qualifications of a pure devotee. Materially, one may be very opulent, experienced, influential, and educated. But if one still thinks himself lower than straw in the street, one attracts the attention of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Lord Krishna. Although Maharaj Padaparudra was a king, he took up a broom to cleanse the road for Lord Jagannath's Rath chariot. Because of this humble service, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very pleased with the king, and for that reason the Lord embraced him. According to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions, a devotee should never be puffed up by material power. He should know that material power is the result of one's past good activities, karma, and is consequently transient. At any moment, all one's material opulence can be finished. Therefore, a devotee is never proud of such opulences. He is always humble and meek, considering himself lower than a piece of straw. Because of this, the devotees are eligible to return home back to Godhead. Isn't that nice? Yeah, Maharaj Prataparuja was excellent, very wonderful example of someone who's materially very highly situated. But at heart, because of his pure Krishna consciousness, at heart, he thought he was nothing in particular. And therefore, there's the famous incident we read about a few weeks ago, where I think it was during the Rath Yatra, if I'm not mistaken, the Rath Yatra cart stopped opposite one of the gardens, I forget it, Jagannath Vallabha perhaps, one of the gardens along the way. And I think the chariot, anyway, it stopped one way or another. And Lord Chaitanya went and lay down in the garden. And when he did that, the king, Maharaj Prataparuja, he dressed himself just as an ordinary person and came and recited verses to Lord Chaitanya from the Song of the Gopis. And Lord Chaitanya, what is it? Buri Da Jana. You're the most munificent person, because you're giving me these beautiful verses spoken by the gopis in Srimad Bhagavatam. So Lord Chaitanya really appreciated that on the part of the king. And we mentioned before, every now and then we mention, because it's important, Srila Prabhupada describes in the Krishna book that in relation to the pastime of Krishna leaving the gopis in the rasa dance, so Srila Prabhupada mentions that generally Krishna can tolerate any type of fault in his devotee, because particularly when the devotees are coming from material existence not long before and many lifetimes in material existence, and there's so many habits and conceptions of life which are deeply ingrained, then it's not easy for the devotee to quickly just drop all those things and then they're just gone. It takes time. So therefore Krishna can tolerate. Krishna is very, very everything, including very tolerant. He's very nice, he's very kind, and we're still reading how he's very beautiful and sweet, and he's very tolerant. And having to deal with people like us, that's good. Because if he wasn't, I hate to think. You know, it said sometimes, I tried to find it. Someone asked me if I could give a reference. I couldn't find it. Oh, but I recall having heard it, that in Kali Yuga, you only get karma, you only incur karma for doing things. If you think of doing things, well, if you think of doing good things, you get the karmic benefit. And if you think of doing bad things, there's no reactions. That's what we heard in Kali Yuga, to help the otherwise, hopeless, conditioned souls. Yeah. So the Lord is definitely very kind and tolerant. But there Srila Prabhupada mentions that even though Krishna can tolerate so many mistakes and foolishness and things like that on the part of the neophyte devotees, but Prabhupada says Krishna cannot tolerate pride. Yeah, that's just, Krishna does not appreciate, and if we become proud, then it's quite likely that we will get a wake-up call, which is usually a moment or a few moments of extreme discomfort. Really just, oh my Lord, something a bit drastic. Yeah. To try and cure us. And that's Krishna's mercy, because that's how we came to this world, really. That's how we fell from our position of Krishna consciousness, due to becoming proud, due to becoming envious. You're not going to really become envious of people that, why have they got something and not me, unless you've got some pride. If you haven't really got pride, then people can have so much, but what does it mean to you? It's just got nothing to do with you. Yeah, so pride, even the materialists recognize, pride comes before a fall. So it's one of the great traps, one of the greatest. And therefore, Chanadapi Sunichena, the Lord really appreciates and emphasizes that we should try to become very humble and meek. As Prabhupada says here, considering himself lower than a piece of straw. There's a nice comment by, it's either Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, in their commentaries on Shikshastakam, on that third verse, where it says, lower than the straw in the street. And the Acharya says that the straw is very good, because it knows its position. It's not, caught in between. Should I place myself very low or try and sort of climb a bit? The straw in the street, it knows its position. It just stays there on the ground. And people step on it, and there's no sign of protest or anything. The straw just takes its position for granted. So we should try to become like that. And not simply because it's sort of like the right thing to do or it's appreciated by the Lord, but because it's true. I'm sorry to say. At least we must think of ourselves in those terms, because it's true. It's just a matter of being realistic. It's not a matter of trying to somehow or other, they use the term jerry-rig, somehow or other, make some concocted arrangement to make myself feel in a certain way, although, it's just a concoction, basically. In this case, it's just true. So, therefore, all the material opulences, wealth, fame, etc., these things, for a devotee, for an intelligent person, these things are of actually absolutely no value. Yeah. Right. And, as Prabhupada says, because of this, the devotees are eligible to return home back to Godhead. Even if you don't do much other than become very humble in devotional service, you'll have a good chance of going back to Godhead. Consider oneself inferior, and because of this, Krishna will very soon deliver you. Etakahi amiyabe vidayatanre dila gamanakale sanatana praheli kahila yanrasange haya e lokalaksha koti vrindavana yaibara e nahe paripati. After speaking to them in this way, I bade them farewell. This is Rupa and Sanatan. Lord Chaitanya bade them farewell. As I was leaving, Sanatan told me, it is not appropriate for one to be followed by a crowd of thousands when going to Vrindavan. I mentioned, I think last week or sometime fairly recently, how Parthasarathi Maharaj and I were talking just 3 weeks ago maybe, about visiting Vrindavan, and I was saying, I take a group of devotees, and he said, well, that's nice, but you must go sometime just, on your own or with just a very, very small group so you can immerse yourself in the transcendental atmosphere. Because here, according to the example given by Lord Chaitanya, referring to Sanatan Goswami said that it's not right to go to Vrindavan followed by a crowd of thousands. Are you okay, devotees? Some of you are anyway. All right. You can always stand up, if it's getting a bit sort of too demanding. Yeah, we always used to stand up. And once or twice devotees fell over in class while standing up. Then they're really tired. One devotee. There's a temple room, something like this or slightly bigger. Devotees sitting at the back against the wall and just out for the count. And class started and the devotees just out. And then he'd been chanting, so he's got his bead bag on his hand. Class starts, and suddenly the devotee jumped up. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Oh, yeah, it was really funny. That was funny. And one time, one devotee, he was fanning with a chamar or a peacock fan, fanning the devotee giving class, who was sitting on some sort of asana type thing. And the devotee's fanning and sort of falling asleep. And finally the devotee fell onto the lap of the devotee giving class and came bouncing down. Anyway, telling stories like that usually wakes the devotees up. Oh, there's some stories, my gosh. And what to speak of, there was a little period where the temple commander would have a water pistol. Seriously. And, in class or in japa, he's looking around. He's sort of chanting, but he's mainly looking around. And in the class, he's sort of listening, but he's mainly looking around. And every now and then, it's true. It's really true. Okay, so we carry on. So, Lord Chaitanya is saying that he was on his way. He got to Navadvip, but so many people were attracted to him. And he went on to Kanai, which is somewhere not too far from those parts, Bengal, and with thousands of people following him. And Sanatan told him, it's not so good to go with such a big crowd. So Lord Chaitanya continues, Tabu ami shunilum matra nakailun avadana prate chali ailana kanayar natashala grama. Although I heard this, I did not pay it any attention. And in the morning I went to the place named Kanai Natashala. It must be not far from Ramakeli. Ratrikale mane ami vichara karila sanatana more kiba praheli kahila. At night, however, I considered what Sanatan had told me. Balata kahila mora eta loka sange loka deki kahibe more eka dange. I decided that Sanatan had spoken very well. I was certainly being followed by a large crowd, and when people would see so many men, they would surely rebuke me, saying, here's another imposter. Dange is imposter. Eka dange, one imposter. Dulaba durgama say, Nirjana Vrindavan. Ekaki yaiba kiba sange ekajana. I then began to consider that Vrindavan is a very solitary place. It is invincible and very difficult to attain. I therefore decided to go there alone, or, at the utmost, with only one person. Madhavendra Puri Tata, Gela Ekeshware, Dugdadana Chale Krishna, Sakshat Dila Tanre. Madhavendra Puri went to Vrindavan alone, and Krishna, on the pretext of giving him milk, granted him an audience. Badiyara Bajipati, Chalilan Tatare, Bahusange Vrindavana, Gamana Nakare. I then understood that I was going to Vrindavan like a magician with his show, and this is certainly not good. No one should go to Vrindavan with so many men. Ekayaiba kiba sange britya ekajana tabe se shobaya Vrindavanera gamana. I have therefore resolved to go alone, or at the utmost with one servant. In this way, my journey to Vrindavan will be beautiful. Vrindavana Yabakahan Ekaki Hana Sanyasange Chaliyachi Daka Bhajana. I thought, instead of going to Vrindavan alone, I'm going with soldiers and the beating of drums. Okay. All right, well, just read a couple more verses. Dik dik apanake bali, hailana astira, nivrita hana puna, ailana gangatira. I therefore said, fie upon me. Dik dik, fie upon me. And being very much agitated, I returned to the banks of the Ganges. See, Lord Caitanya really got into this whole thing about followers and how it's not nice, particularly in regard to a very sacred place. Bhaktagane rakia aino nija nija stane amasange aila sabe Panchachaya Jane. I then left all the devotees there and brought only 5 or 6 persons with me. And this is now 277. Well, I'll read another couple of verses. What did I say? Nirvigne ebe kaiche, yaiba Vrindavan, sabe meli yukti deha hana parasane. Now I wish that you all will be pleased with me and give me good consultation. Tell me, how shall I be able to go to Vrindavan without impediments? Gadadhare chadigenu inho duka paila, se hetu Vrindavana, Yaite Narila. I left Gadadhar Pandit here and he became very unhappy. For this reason, I could not go to Vrindavan. You remember that? You remember that? Yes. The whole thing with Gadadhar, back and forth. So Lord Caitanya, in his humility, is saying that I made Gadadhar unhappy and for this reason I couldn't go to Vrindavan. It's not the case, but that's the feeling of an advanced devotee. Tabe Gadadhara Pandit Prema Vishnahana Prabhupada Dari Kahe Vinaya Karya. Being encouraged by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's words, Gadadhar Pandit became absorbed in ecstatic love. Immediately clasping the lotus feet of the Lord, he began to speak with great humility. Tumi yahan raha, tahan Vrindavana, tahan Yamuna Ganga, Sarva Tirtha Gana. Gadadhar Pandit said, wherever you stay is Vrindavan, as well as the river Yamuna, the river Ganges, and all other places of pilgrimage. Tabu Vrindavana Yaha Loka Shikaite Seita Karibe Toma Yelaya Chite. Although wherever you stay is Vrindavan, you will still go to Vrindavan. just to instruct people. Otherwise, you will do whatever you think best. Hare Krishna. You devotees, you're doing so much devotional service. I'm sure Krishna's very happy. But be careful. Fall asleep while doing whatever. Okay, devotees, we will carry on. Well, you will carry on next Sunday. Sri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai. See, I don't have time, I'm afraid. Yeah. Yes, you start with verse 281, which has a big purport. Quite a big purport. Oh, quite big, yeah. 281.